Welcome to Shelf Help. Today we're speaking with Kathrin Henon, founder and CEO of Planet Bake, New York-based brand that makes sugar-free, vegan, gluten-free donuts that actually taste like really good donuts. Born and raised in Germany, Kathrin spent a fair amount of time in the fashion industry before having a bit of a wake-up call during COVID, which kind of led her to realize how much sugar people consume and how few truly healthy dessert options exist in the market. And that's kind of what led her to where we are today. So yeah, excited to get into it. Kathrin, just first off, for the listeners that aren't that familiar with Planet Bake, just give us just quick lay of the land, just in terms of kind of origin story, why behind the brand, core products you got currently in the lineup, and then maybe just throw out a few places that people can get their hands on them, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, sounds great. Thank you so much. As I grew up in Germany, my favorite day wasn't just a holiday or my birthday in general. It was actually Tuesdays because on Tuesday we went to my grandmother's house and where she baked donuts for me and all of my cousins. And so it became a ritual that makes, it just felt magical at that time. We would get together, all come together and really like sharing this specific moment. And so later on, throughout the years and that happening every week, day of the week, every week. So baking became harder for her. And so we, the cousins, took it on ourselves to really keep that moment of Tuesday
Okay.
donuts alive.
Love that.
Yeah. And so, this is actually how Planet Bake was born in 2021 based on this origin story. As we all know, fried donuts are loaded with sugar and provide no nutritional value. And so I had a family history with chronic inflammation, diabetes, and colon cancer. So I really wanted to create something that is truly good for you and provides essential nutrition that the body needs. On a daily basis. So
Yeah.
our donut is not a protein donut. It is really focused on real ingredients, super simple. We use flaxseed, arrowroot, almonds, psyllium husk, real ground spices, cacao, cocoa, avocado oil only, and then we use allulose sweetener. And so currently we sell 4 SKUs, meaning 4 flavors in the market, which is dark chocolate, cinnamon, vanilla, and blueberry. And product can be found across the East Coast, really in key retailers. We just recently launched with ShopRite. We are in a lot of the independent in the city, in New York City, as well as, a couple of stores in California where you can find the product at Barkley Bowls or in San Diego Windmill Farms. And then, out on Long Island in like North Shore Farms or Wild by Nature.
Do you think that your German upbringing has influenced the way you view the US food system compared to the European one, which I know people often have a lot of comments about, and or just the way you approach entrepreneurship in general?
Would say within the food landscape, yes, definitely based on the ingredients and what's possible in America, what's not possible in the EU. Obviously, I think, people are speaking out much more than they used to about those differences. I as a consumer, I don't buy anything specifically in the US that number one, I don't know what it is, I don't understand it, or I know it's harmful. So this is just where I draw the lines, and this is actually how I wanted, to create Planet Bake as a stepping stone into the right direction and just avoiding all the crap, no gums, no artificials, no anything that can really harm you. And I know allulose, there's not too much research out there yet, but I believe that it has great potential and there has never been a bad article or research study about it. A lot of trust into the ingredient itself and what it can do for the human body. And so I believe, yeah, I think the EU guidelines definitely have its advantages
Sure.
in many ways.
Yeah, totally. I would agree with that. Well, yeah, let's rewind back to, I think it was probably 2020-ish when you were working on brand identity, initial packaging design. Thinking back to those few years back, what do you remember were kind of the key variables that were top of mind for you when you were building out the brand identity and the kind of positioning and voice for Planet Bake?
Yeah, I actually, because I have a fashion design background, I started the graphic designs background. I started developing the packaging myself.
Nice.
And based on that experience, it's constantly evolving. And that's also due to, FDA regulations. My goal was always to make the product sustainable, which makes it really hard, especially in the United States, because the food regulations are so specific, where you're not allowed to use basically X amount or this material versus another. You really have to use like there's only one way in the industry currently. Like all the wrappers that everybody really uses, it's very limited. So there's not a lot of innovations around that
Right.
unless you come to a specific scale where you might be able to make a corner and get out of that and utilize a different, more sustainable material.
Yeah. No, that makes total sense. Naming is always such like it's such an important part, but it feels really ambiguous and can feels like it can be a challenging process where people can get kind of lost. Yeah, thinking back to those early days, what did that naming process look like for you that ultimately landed you on Planet Bake?
I mean, I experimented with different names, different options. I came to Planet Bake because it just felt right for the brand and the planet. And so I always wanted it to be focused on the people and the planet, not just either or.
Yeah.
Always needed them to be as a whole combined. So the early slogan actually was "Good nutrition is our mission," and I've always stood by this over the years as I have been building out the packaging, the branding, the marketing, the sales, the brand itself.
Formulation R&D standpoint, I imagine it probably took, a little while to dial things in and kind of find the formulation process that really worked. I'm not sure if you started in a home kitchen and then kind of evolved out of there, but yeah, without giving away any trade secrets, what were some of those kind of key factors that and variables that you played around with or key tweaks you made along the way between, let's just say, the first version of the donut that you made to the point where the final version that you said, okay, I know this is right. I feel great about this. I'm ready to bring this to market. And were there any kind of must haves and or non starters, let's say?
I would say it's constantly evolving, especially since, trends are changing or regulations are changing,
Yeah.
or you want to enhance the flavor of a product versus, based on feedback or consumer outreach and studies. So at the very early stages, I mean, it took me 9 months to develop the recipe myself. I did not have any third party involved in the process. I took my sweet time with this. There was lots of obstacles, especially if you're looking at the simple ingredients, like how to keep them all together and make them come out in a certain way and also last. So the very early product, it was molding really quickly. And so we had to adjust over time to figure out what is the sweet spot on ingredients that we have to use. And this is actually why we use the ingredients to amount as well. They're all natural. There's no preservatives. So the ratio really matters. And I had to learn it a little bit the hard way. Going into market, not knowing all the details could sometimes be challenging. But overall, I mean, as I said, I think the recipe is always evolving. You always want to improve and make it better and take the most important lesson everybody should learn is listen to your consumer because they're the one consuming and purchasing the product, and that's the ultimate business goal. Yeah, so from that perspective, I mean, it was lots of hits and misses, right? A lot of R&D, a lot of testing. We worked with a lab for shelf life studies. Actually, it was Cornell University for
Nice.
for me. I've always trusted him. Pricing was efficient, and so it was just yeah, it's a process, and it's still evolving today.
Right. It's an evolving thing. The product is never done, right?
Exactly.
Was there one thing that really stands out in terms of was like the biggest challenge to get to the formulation that you felt like was the one that you were happy with?
Yes. So when I did the product in my commercial kitchen, the last final tweaks was really the chocolate on top.
Okay.
Like I needed it to be sweet enough, but not too sweet because, allulose, it's expensive. It has its own uh, contributions to the product, I would say. And so, yeah, it was just the final piece that finally came together. And then moving that into scalability, like moving into a co-packer was the next final step.
You touched on now I can't say it, allulose. Uh, was a sweetener that you ultimately decided upon. Did you explore other options like whether, I don't know, stevia, monk fruit, probably not sucralose? Yeah, any other options that you tried? And then I'm kind of curious, what were the kind of decision factors that ultimately led you to say, I feel like allulose is the one I want to go with. This is the best one for me.
I discovered allulose really early on. Um, and so that was really in 2020 when the FDA finally called it out on the ingredients label for what it actually is. So you didn't have to list it under the carbohydrates as a total anymore. You would
Okay.
have to call it out below the sugar. So it was into the carbohydrates, but it was not a sugar. So that gave a little bit of a transparency, I would say, to the customer.
Sure.
I know a lot of brands today, they don't even call out the grams that are inside in regards to allulose,
Mm,
but we at Planet Bake, we do because we want to be fully transparent. It is our number one ingredient, and so I think people should know how much is in there
yeah.
and what they're eating. I think it's just, important to know anybody who is making health cautious decision. I am always for full transparency in that regards. But allulose, I started with it immediately. I did my research on it. I read like all the studies, all research studies that were out there. I know how it's composed. I know that it's converted. I know the chemical structure of allulose inside and out. And so just from that understanding versus other sweeteners in the market, I did not want to use stevia. I did not want to use monk fruit because of the aftertaste and what consumer brought back to me that they really hated
Hmm.
and they don't enjoy it and it's declining. I feel like a little bit altogether in the market currently, which wasn't the case in 2021, 22. And so erythritol was another sweetener that I looked into that seemed interesting. But I decided ultimately against it at a certain time when some of the not so great studies came out.
Right. Totally. That doesn't surprise me. Anything that you're able to talk to in terms of anything that's next on the product roadmap?
So right now, nothing is in the pipeline. I have experimented with many products in the market.
Sure.
I mean, when we first started Planet Bake, I have released cheesecake, I have released cookies just for the consumer testing and how the feedback and what they like, what they don't like. I mean, there's so many different ways. Some of our competitors are coming out with muffins. And so it really depends on like what roadmap and what direction the company will go,
Yeah.
which is not determined at this time.
I think when we spoke a few weeks back, we talked about co-packers a bit. So just double clicking on that a bit. I guess first off, was it pretty challenging for you to find a co-packer that was going to be a good fit for you just from the product standpoint in terms of what the ingredients are in the formulation? It's obviously not a normal donut. It's pretty specific in terms of the formulation and kind of the ingredient makeup list. Like, what was that process like for you?
Yeah, I would say based on the recipe, it has been super challenging. There's not many co-packers out there. Number one, small scale volume.
Yeah,
They're still technically handmade today, even with the co-packer, because it's such a delicate process, I would say. So based on the ingredients, it has nuts, so that makes it challenging to find the right partner.
sure.
Does not contain gluten, so it's not your typical bakery who has all the processes because of X, Y, and Z. They do milk processing and dairy processing, which even it's just something that we stand for and that I want to not take away from.
Sure.
And so allergens in general has been an issue. And then from the recipe itself, it is not a regular donut dough. It is not a regular cake batter. So it's something in between. Oh, the processing of this is, you have to get used to, you have to train the team. It takes a lot of energy and time and resources to put into that specific process. Finding a co-packer in general, I would only say it's your life partner, technically. You speak to them on a sometimes daily, sometimes weekly basis. And finding the right partner is essential to number one, scale the business and to even survive in today's environment. So if your margins don't add up, you don't get X, Y, and Z, they're not responsive, that's a red flag. I know I'm saying this because I know a lot of founders who have so many challenges, especially since there's so many new brands out there. I feel like a lot of co-packers are taking advantage of that,
Interesting.
like pushing pressure, delivering product late for 2, 3 months or
Mm,
not responding to emails and calls at all.
that's
We
not
have
correct.
seen it a lot in my community itself.
What did you find was the best way to kind of get them to I guess, take you seriously as a new brand, and ultimately getting them to say, yes, I'm going to give you a shot, and let's go down this road together.
I think transparency and being very open and communicative about where the business is and where do you see it going. I think that's number one. If you don't have a plan in mind and you have to convince them that it's an external, they don't know anything about you. So why would they give you a shot? It's technically like pitching to an investor or to a buyer.
Yeah.
It's the same approach. So you need to make sure they know you have some leverage. And then mostly at the very beginning, if you're just coming out of a commercial kitchen to a co-packer, I would say that's very challenging.
Hmm.
I mean, you still need to show some sort of a roadmap, but it's more of like because they're probably on smaller scale. But if you once you go to that next level, I feel like co-packers are more open to having a real conversation.
As an early stage founder, I think when we talked, you were kind of talking about, and I've heard this from, you're not the only one I've heard from this from, is how it can be difficult in the early days, which is in that a lot of vendors, whether it's co-packers or it's, ingredient suppliers, packaging suppliers or whatnot, a lot of them asked for pretty significant upfront payments or deposits just because I guess, the vendors see the risk that the brand could go out of business as a new business. But, it's kind of like the chicken or the egg thing. It's like, one of the things that increases the chances of an early stage brand having cash crunch challenges is because of all these upfront payments. From your experience, have you found any ways to kind of navigate around this?
Yeah, I mean, I think it comes back to the same concept of having an open communication and talking to the vendors and partners. So let's say you work with a vendor for a year, right? And you have paid them constantly upfront for a net 30. And then going out of your way, since you have built this relationship, to say, hey, we are sitting on these ingredients for 6 months. And because we buy large volumes, but even as an early brand, we don't move as much as somebody who's selling currently in Walmart. And we understand that, but would you be open to giving us like a 6 months term, for example? And just like having that open communication and then being like, if cash flow is struggling, just being upfront, like in 5 months, say, hey, can we push out another 30 days? I know I have this some coming in and this is, when I'm going to pay you. Yeah. And then, I mean, distribution companies in general, they're also not on perfect target with their payments as well. So it makes it even more challenging, especially if you're having a big PO or something.
Right.
Financing doesn't really always work out in the way we would like to.
Hmm.
Even if you have invoice financing or PO financing, they still want their money. And if somebody in the chain is late, it's going to throw everything off.
Right. You also mentioned when you were talking, you highlighted just like a few tools that you had thrown out there that are pretty supportive and helpful for early stage brands. I think you had mentioned was Spring Cash and Waveflyer just being two. Any other ones that early stage operators should know about, and other ones that you found to be really helpful?
Yeah, I mean, overall, I think funding in general is tough, right? So if you're talking to a Wayflyer or a Spring Cash age company, they can be helpful in a certain way, but you really have to know like what are you using the capital for and why do you need it. Wayflyer, for example, is especially in regards to cash flow, in regards to inventory specifically, which can be very helpful. But you still have to produce the cash to pay them back on a monthly basis or biweekly.
Yeah.
Spring Cash is more of like a bigger PO that they want to cover and give you upfront terms. Other than that, I think it's really important for early founders to look into grants because it's free money.
Yeah. Totally.
I am in the community of Choose Foundation, which has been really helpful for female founders specifically. They always have different grants, marketing, Amazon, there's different opportunities out there. And those are not the only, this is not the only organization who's offering this. Yeah. So the most important thing is just keep the eyes open and keep looking for these opportunities online. And one of the current one is actually who has just been released is Shelfmate, which is another great community for early founders who are really at the early stages of, you know, maybe 250,000 revenue, but now they need to scale to 500,000 or even 1 million in revenue. So there's nothing in regards to funding in between. And it's really hard for founders at this stage. It's easy to get maybe a line of credit, but beyond that, it's very tough. Even an SBA loan or whatever is really hard if you just want to rely on the business credentials
Yeah.
solely.
You chose to bootstrap from the outset. And then I think you started approaching investors at some point, and I think you kind of shared a challenge, which is not the first time I've heard, is that there's kind of you kind of started to see a gap in the ecosystem for, call it pre-Series A CPG brands in terms of investors that are willing to take a chance at that stage. Yeah, what has this experience been like for you, and any kind of solutions or investors or investor groups you found that have been supportive and or helpful at that early stage?
I would say so. Planet Bake received early funding at the within the first couple of months. So
Nice.
we were approached by a local firm here in New York City, and we did a strategic partnership. The money was used for scale, so we launched into all the Juice Press stores, scale operation, commercial kitchen, in order to then move to a co-manufacturing facility. Um, that process itself was easy because they approached me, but after that, I would say as funding got harder and harder, and with AI coming in and all the other industries, tech specifically, I feel like the consumer space has been left out of the picture. And everybody's talking about it today, how, you know, how challenging it is. But I would say there's still consumer angel investment groups out there that every founder should be talking to, even not maybe right now to pitch, but just to have a conversation. Just, opening the doors, having the conversation, being transparent of where the business is, you know, where it could potentially go, just handing out some samples. And then when the time is right, just submit an application on the website
Yeah.
and see what happens.
Being a founder can be pretty lonely at times and feel pretty lonely at times. And one thing that you told me was that you wish you had known about or had found communities and community resources earlier. Like Shelfmate is one great example. Outside of that one, what kinds of things in this realm have you found to be most helpful?
Yeah, I would say so. When I started the company, I used to tell my boyfriend that I'm business lonely. So he was really the only one I kept talking to, and that was 2021,
Yeah.
2022, like real pandemics. And then kind of when it opened up a little bit, I started going out to nationally New York events,
Nice.
and they're all across the country. Startup CPG is another one. And what I have found in the last, I would say, 2 years is there's a lot more experience-based community building, especially in New York and probably other bigger cities, where it's more like founder focused and wellness focused. So those are the two things combined that they're bringing together. There's one of my friends, she is doing her company is called Shanti House, so it's always yoga with some information or
Very
wellness, inspiration, tech, what health tech, whatever that looks like in the environment or consumer. And really just like bringing those two worlds together, especially with mental health and whatnot. Then another friend of mine is running a club here in New York City called Girls Who Meet. So she brings together these girls groups every week, twice, who are just doing these fun activities together. And I feel like this is how what I'm trying to say is these communities are popping up everywhere. It's not just those two. They're like literally anywhere. And this is really great for founders. Number one, to talk to people about the challenging they're having. But secondary, distribute your product, get feedback, get it into people's hands, and then just connect on a personal level or see who can you partner with, who else is out there. So those are just different ways that I've approached it, and
yeah.
also in regards to brand awareness.
Shifting gears a little bit, talking about go-to-market growth, retail distribution, and everything in that realm. I think especially in the early days, there's kind of a delicate balance that has to be struck between expanding door count and maximizing velocity and making sure you're going to stay on the shelf at the doors that you get into. What's been your approach here in terms of managing that delicate balance?
So since I started Planet Bake and I opened most of the doors myself at the very early stages, is, just going door to door and doing demos in person. That has always been the number one success. When we first started, I would say during the pandemic, it was really easy to sell into stores because the big companies couldn't deliver. So I opened like 10 stores every week. as I'm, doing demos twice a week just to get the product into people's hands. And these independent stores in New York City specifically, they didn't really care. They just needed business and they knew the customer need, they still need groceries and they're operating. So that was really, I would say, easy. And what I've learned like maybe 1, 2 years ago is it's getting harder and harder. So we really need to convince the buyers in regards to retail, like why you should be on the shelf and what are your benefits. They love to take back in 2021, 2022, I did not give any free fills. People were happy to pay for the product full price. Today, if I go out, everybody wants free product. So that has kind of shifted from pandemic versus after pandemic. Mm, I actually came together with a female group here in New York City, and we're trying to build out our own female founded demo group. So, number one, we don't want to rely on outside partners who are not delivering. They just hire random people. You don't know the performance. You can't control what's happening at that level. You're just getting charged a $250 fee and you don't really see much happening. So, we said, okay, let's just come together and do that ourselves. And we will recruit and train and then, move from there. Yeah, I think another great tool in general is just advertising online. There's Instacart, there's Meta ads, geo-targeted ads. That has always helped me personally as a woman, as a single person running the show. Has yeah, it's just helped me like get the word out and tell people, hey, this is where you can buy the product. Go try it out.
From a distributor standpoint, I'm not sure at what level you started working with distributors, but yeah, from that standpoint, from your experience, I guess the first question, like at what stage, looking back now, would you say a business or a brand should start thinking about engaging a distributor?
So I always approached it that way where I wanted to start with somebody small. So I had a small distribution company in 2023 in Philadelphia. And so they distributed a product on behalf of me, which was great at the early stages. But then at some point, because they were small, it stalls. And this is the only, like, they're the only accounts, and this is just how it's going. So you need to think about the next growth stage. So I was
Totally.
adding a second distribution company and a third, but they were all really small. So it kind of like stalls again. And then you have to think about the next step. So last year, I made the decision to move to rainforest distribution,
Okay.
and they're covering the entire northeast right now for Planet Bake, and we're planning to move down southeast as well.
That's great. That's exciting. That's awesome. What do you feel like founders maybe misunderstand or approach the wrong way when it comes to distributor relationships and really maximizing that relationship to optimize for success with that distributor?
It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work managing the relationships. You still have to sell into the accounts. You cannot rely on a distributor to do that.
Right.
So I've always so I have a salesperson on the team who calls literally every store of the distribution company, like maybe 4 times a year, just to check in, see if there's anything we can do, or even just like pitching the product, just letting them know it exists. Because even if the distributor walks in, they have a portfolio of, let's say, 200 plus brands, and you're probably not top of mind unless you engage with this rep and you make them, you know, think about you, dream about you, your brand, like they have to fall in love with you. And if this is not the case, which 99% it's probably not, you still have to go completely out of your way to figure out how to manage the direct retailer relationships.
Are you working with brokers yet?
We had a broker in the past. We moved away from that model for a little bit. And now we're thinking about adding one for the next year.
Any specific big goals you're kind of focused on for 2026 from a distribution standpoint?
Potentially, yes. I did a Expo East, which is the last one in 2023, and I got approached by Sprouts.
Nice.
We have had this conversation. I pushed back for 2 years now. So I finally went down there and said, okay, we're ready
Yeah, that's
to make
great.
this
That's exciting.
happen. But we'll see. We get a decision in a couple of days.
Nice. All right. Fingers
See if it
crossed.
happens or not.
Last question, and then anything else you want to share. But outside of Planet Bake specifically, obviously you're ingrained in the CPG world. You're probably in stores a lot, just following a lot of trends. Any brands outside of Planet Bake or kind of trends in general in the CPG space that's gotten you kind of particularly excited about, or you've been kind of following along just for fun?
Yeah, so what I always keep my eye out, so Planet Bake is sold in the refrigerated space. So I've heard some rumors that big retailers are expanding that entire grab and go refrigerated category.
Nice.
And one of them is Sprouts, who's I think thinking about this move. And so that's what I'm excited about is like who's building out this category as it's growing and the consumer is really drawn to that section. It's just convenient, it's better for you, all of the above. And so I'm excited about seeing this how it plays out. Another super large retailer is thinking about adding an entire new food wellness category,
Wow, nice.
and it will take some time because they're so large, but just hearing that is exciting and we're moving the right direction.
Totally.
Other than that, I mean, I'm always rooting for brands who are super clean, super healthy, better for you, and just, combined, I feel like we can make a real impact.
Well, yeah, this has been great, Catherine. So many great insights here. I think this is really helpful for other founders. Great to learn about Planet Bake. What's the best place for people to follow along with you and the journey that you're on in building Planet Bake? And then what's the best place for people to follow along with the brand as well?
Yeah, you can follow us on Instagram at planetbake.us or connect with us on LinkedIn. And
Cool.
then obviously we're on our website and yeah, feel free to reach out.
Cool. Awesome. Sounds good. Well, it's been great, Catherine. Really appreciate the time.
Thank you so much, Adam. Thanks for
Yeah.
having me.